All right, so back in the lodge adjacent to my shop, and let's talk about calling whitetail deer through a whole entire season. Now, one thing I really want to be explicit about is I don't sound like a one-man band going through the woods with a game call trying to communicate to every species of wildlife. I build game calls, I'm my own R&D. If it puts me in the field, I can expense it to my business. So doing this full-time for 7 years now, a hobby for a long time, but doing this professionally, making a living for 7 years, and 5 to 6 years is how long I've had the website. And I've been filming for Live the Wildlife TV on the Pursuit channel. Was aired on Sportsman's channel on the Pursuit channel right now. I have a whole archive of video in my gun safe. We're gonna be releasing little bits and little bits and little bits over the course of time. A lot of this is tutorials and shop work. I love doing what I do, and I want to give you a taste of my experience through a whole entire season of whitetail deer. I live in upstate New York, right at the foothills of the Adirondacks. So these are things that you have to look at for your demographic, where you live, what is your carrying capacity, what is your habitat, what is your population density, what do you have for your age class of deer, what is your target deer. If you're happy, I'm happy for you. I will never ever shame anybody for taking any age class of deer. If you're happy, I'm happy for you. The only person I do have a problem with is that one guy that says, well, if I don't shoot it, the neighbor's gonna shoot it. Well, I hate to tell you the truth, you are the neighbor. If you're happy, I'm happy for you. Don't become the neighbor and hunt that animal with that mentality. This is my season beginning to season end progression of communicating with whitetail deer. So, opening here, upstate New York archery season, I'm gonna implement some things that might sound completely unorthodox. This is from my perspective between predator hunting, game calling, the amount of time we spend at night when the lights go out with an overlap of season with what we actually watch whitetail deer do when the lights go out. So some of this is going to sound completely unorthodox. This is another thing you need to be cognizant of reading the room. What are the ground conditions, the time of year? There's a lot of woodsman skills that go hand in hand with communicating with any species of wildlife. So at the very beginning of a whitetail season, things that I can do to help my success rate to manipulate deer. So if hypothetically I have a property, I have a target buck. If I have them patterned on a feeding pattern, coming out of bedding, going to food, probably the best call to use is silence. There's no reason to try to manipulate that deer. The only time I would try to manipulate that buck that time of year is if I have a visual. That's it. I'm not gonna blind call to that deer. I am patterning that deer on a feeding pattern from point A to point B. I'm gonna set my stand in an appropriate place with predominant wind in my favor, the thermals and air temperature change in my favor. These are all of the woodsman skills that you need to gather before you pursue something, or any age class of deer, or any wildlife, any mammal. So early season, what am I gonna do to actually call to that deer? I might be silent. I might not do a darn thing other than hunt that feeding pattern. If I have a visual on that buck, the simplistic things that I would do that I would feel comfortable with, I said this in a previous video. This sounds completely hypocritical to anything you may have experienced before, but the amount of whitetail bucks that we watch just sparring, clicking. I am not playing bloody knuckles up in the tree, little bits. Only if I have a visual. I don't want to blind call that deer when I'm hunting a feeding pattern. if I have a visual and I need to manipulate that deer and my wind is good, just a little, little tickle of antlers just to pique interest, and curiosity kills the cat. That's something you could do. Having a visual on that buck that time of year, never ever once have I grunted at the buck, have I used a doe bleat at the buck. I grunt in the direction that I want the buck to move towards. So early season, there's a lot of foliage on the trees, and depending on the acoustical environment that you're actually hunting in, if you grunt at the deer, they're going to hear where the sound came from. Now, if the deer knows where the sound came from and their interest is piqued, their curiosity is piqued, if they don't see it instinctually, they're gonna wanna smell it. They heard it, they're gonna wanna see it, and then they're gonna wanna smell it. So if you grunt at the deer, they heard where the sound came from. Instinctually, they wanna come investigate if you piqued interest, so they're gonna come to your downwind and unfortunately get a good possibility of actually smelling you, busting you, and leaving. When they vacate the area, nothing good's gonna happen. My approach for this, if I have a visual on that deer, I'm not gonna grunt at the deer, I'm gonna grunt in the direction that I want the deer to move towards. Increased optimism that this will work is because of the acoustics of what the sound is actually bouncing off of, and where that deer actually hears where the sound comes from will put that deer in the direction that you want them to move towards. So if you have an appropriate wind and the deer's here, you want them over here, grunt in that direction, even if that's your upwind side. And there's a very, very good possibility, the upwind side being the side that you want the deer to go on. I'm backwards, pointing the wrong way. Try your best to put the deer on the upwind side. Don't ever grunt at the deer. Do not grunt to your upwind side. I said it again. Don't grunt towards your downwind side. Try to grunt and project your sound to your upwind side, so when that deer comes in because you piqued curiosity, optimistically they're going to go to your upwind side to put themselves downwind from where they think the sound came from. These are things that you can do and give a try. And also, don't be afraid to try this on deer that you're not going to shoot. It is an absolute amazing feeling being in a tree and just having that sense of confidence. And the more confidence that you have, you're going to be more successful in the field. Try being a puppeteer up in a tree. I don't want you there, I want you over there. Just give it a try, especially with deer that you have zero interest to shoot. It's a huge learning lesson that you'll be able to, self-teach yourself. Tips and advice I want to pass on. Those early season deer, I typically never blind call. Now, as our season progresses, something we also need to look at is whitetail deer breeding is not all of it here. It's on a bell curve, and it goes up and up and up, and then you have the apex. This is, what we call the rut. That's the most exciting time to be out in the field. When we start getting closer to the rut, and I start seeing those, the sign out in the woods, the, big community scrapes are just wide open. Scrapes on travel paths are being more prominent. There's more rub lines. Wandering fawns. These are, some things that I've mentioned before, but when I start seeing that sign in the field, I'm gonna pick up the tone. I'm gonna pick up the noise, and I'm gonna get more aggressive with rattling. I'm gonna get more aggressive with grunting, more doe bleats. Early season, lots of doe bleats. If I'm hunting, I'm gonna regress a little bit because I did skip that. Early season, if I don't have that target buck, family groups of does, I have a lot of fun hunting early season does. It's a great time to start knocking down doe population, depending on your carrying capacity and the habitat and your population density. Great time to shoot does. Family groups are very, very vocal. Same exact tricks. Don't grunt at the doe. When I say grunt, bleat, blat. That blat, short syllables, not bleat, blat. Don't take that can call, flip it over and exhaust it all the way. Just a short blat in the direction that you want that deer to move towards. Doe family groups, believe it or not, are very vocal. The kids are playing, goofing off. The vocals I hear from mom basically yelling at the kids to knock it off because they're a prey animal and she's trying to teach the kids appropriately. And the vocals that the fawns are making, your fawn bucks, your doe fawns, and mom telling the kids to knock it off, that's the most amount of doe vocals I hear early season, and the same exact dynamic late season. Early season doe bleats for doe hunting, typically bucks early season, tickling antlers only when I have a visual, because I'm typically just going to hunt feeding patterns. If I need to manipulate that deer to get to my upwind, little bits of tickling, and then a little directional calling to try to manipulate that deer. Sorry, I regressed. Back into starting to get into your seeking, chasing, pre-rut. That sign says start picking up the volume. I'm gonna rattle more often. I'm going to grunt more often. I'm going to grunt projecting my sound from my downwind to my upwind every single time. Optimistically, when I grunt downwind, my direction of travel sounds like I'm moving upwind. The last sound I make is to my upwind. Just trying to be optimistic that the last sound that buck heard, I had a travel path going to the upwind, and you could potentially bring that deer to your upwind. And if he's out of shooting range, he's still to your upwind side. Best attempts and methods to increase your chances of success. If you're blind calling, try these things. So during peak rut, I am calling every couple of minutes. No more than 5 to 10 minutes are going to elapse where I'm not making a sound, because I don't want to take a chance of missing a deer that's potentially constantly on the move looking for a doe. Daylighting deer, moving deer, peak breeding. I don't want to miss an opportunity of sitting quiet and missing that opportunity of vocally communicating, and the deer was within earshot, but I wasn't making any sound. This is also very, very important of what is the habitat that you're hunting in, how often you should call, and ground conditions are a huge part of it. Did it rain the night before? Does it sound like you're walking on a carpet? Or is it loud, crunchy leaves and it sounds like you're walking on cornflakes? If it's loud ground, I'm gonna call a lot more often if I have thicker habitat. The reason for this is I can hear if something's coming. Optimistically, I can hear if something's coming. If it's quiet ground and thick habitat, I'm probably not going to call nearly as often, and high alert at all times. Always just waiting for that deer to just manifest out of nowhere. Biggest fear in blind calling and quiet ground is it gives that deer a chance to just slip in. They heard it, they don't see it, they're gonna wanna smell it, and you get busted. So if it's quiet ground, I don't call nearly as often, but I'm especially on high alert. If the ground is noisy, I'm gonna call a lot more often. As we progress out of peak rut and we're on the downhill cycle, and now you start having those family groups of deer rekindling, coming back together. Your family groups of doe are coming back together, your bucks are starting to bachelor back up. Excuse me. This is where I'll start implementing more doe bleats on the blind. Like in the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, I hear a lot more doe vocalizations and interactions. Same thing, hunting doe groups in the early season, I enjoy the heck out of it. Into rut, preseason, right before you hit peak rut, just out of that, and just remember bell curve, okay? So everything doesn't happen right here. Remember that bell curve of the breeding cycle. On the downhill cycle, when you start seeing those family groups starting to rekindle, your doe family groups, your fawns are coming back together, mom and dad are done doing mom and dad things, and you start seeing these larger doe groups coming back together. Food sources are great, manipulating deer in a direction of calling, not at the deer, in the direction you want them to move towards. I've had a lot of luck with doe bleat. Now I said this in another video, and This is something I've had great success with. You have late season tags, and maybe in your area, if you still have a antlered deer, if you still have a buck tag in your pocket and you're hunting family groups of doe, you know, it's meat in the freezer, the camaraderie, it's defining conservation, wisely using our resources. There's a reason and a purpose. Some areas you can shoot a lot of doe, some areas not so much, because those statistics dictate the carrying capacity of how much you can take. My area, we have a lot of doe tags given out. So late season, we shoot a lot of antlerless deer, lots of does. So something I've always really enjoyed, and I had luck doing it once, and then I did it again, and I did it again, and I'm like, man, this is actually really working, is rattling in the late season after you shoot the doe. I said this in the other video, but like this is my whole progression on calling from beginning of the season to the end of the season. And if you didn't see the other video, this might be new then. So you have late season doe coming in, feeding pattern, regardless if you called them in or not, is especially archery hunting, but I've done it with a firearm, late season muzzleloader. As soon as you shoot, think about the sound in the environment that you're in. As soon as the release of a string, the thwack of the arrow, the impact, running for the death dash, make sure you got a good shot first. And this is not for the new hunter, this is not for the novice, but for your experienced whitetail hunter, you know you got a good shot on that deer. Hang up your bow, pick up your rattling antlers, and play bloody knuckles. Just go to town. The reason for this, think about all of the audible stimulus of everything in that area after you shoot. The next thing you should hear is absolutely nothing. Every animal out there just heard a sound and they stopped doing what they're doing. And now they're audibly examining what was that sound. They heard the thwack, they hear a ground commotion, and then they hear rattling. So that doe just helped you paint the picture of a sound. What was that? You got their attention, ground commotion, and then immediate rattling. If there is a buck within earshot, there's a very high probability he's going to come in and investigate. And not a lot, but a couple of times I have shot the doe, grabbed the antlers, started rattling like crazy. Here comes the buck. And then I shot him. It didn't happen a lot, but it happened a couple times. But what did happen a lot is the amount of bucks that I've decided to not shoot. So it's also your choice as the hunter. If you're happy, I'm happy for you. You want to shoot that spike horn? Send it. If it's not in your age class, don't do it. But you've got nothing to lose. You shot. You have to get out of your stand. You have to go to the point of impact. You have to walk that blood trail. You have to recover your deer. So you have absolutely nothing to lose by rattling after the shot. So all of these scenarios are just perspective, my approach, and I'll say it again because I don't want anybody thinking I'm a one-man marching band out in the field. Sometimes your best call is silence. Absolutely nothing at all. These are different scenarios, time of year, and my perspective on communicating with whitetail deer. That animal is going to be the best teacher you have to be successful in the woods. Watch it, learn from it, learn the body language. I did a video on the head cower and what that actually means with a sign of submission. All of these things, when you can put everything together, is going to help your chances for success in the field.